Please take a moment to write in the chat your country and whether you're a practitioner, scientist, or pharmacy educator. Welcome to today's webinar titled Advancing Pharmacy and Pharmaceutical Sciences Education, Fostering Research and Postgraduate Education. Today is also International Day of Education, and we are delighted to host you at this event. We look forward to an engaging and informative session. My name is Ozge Ozer, and I am the Congress Program and Provision Manager. I will be facilitating today's event. I'm also joined by my colleague in the background, Albina Labib, who is the Exhibition and Digital Events Coordinator at FIP. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you find the webinar informative and engaging. For today's webinar, we are honored to have speakers and panelists covering all 6 regions of the world, demonstrating a true global perspective on advancing pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences education. Our moderator today is Pierre Moreau from Canada, and our esteemed speakers include John Pieper from the USA, Lilian Atsoparty from Malta, Sherif Khalifa from the United Arab Emirates, Nusovo Mayimele from South Africa, Renika Solapans from Malaysia, Wafa Al-Magdahi from Yemen, and Indra Tresikonia, I'm sure I probably said it wrong, from Lithuania. We are delighted to have such a diverse group of experts to share their insights and experiences with us today. Before we begin today's webinar with our speakers, I'd like to highlight that this event is organized by FIP AIM, that is FIP Academic Institutional Membership. AIM is the only global network that interconnects schools of pharmacy and academic pharmacy leaders worldwide, facilitating communication, collaboration, and sharing of ideas related to academic leadership. Our members include schools of pharmacy and/or pharmaceutical sciences represented through their deans or academic leadership team members. If you wish your school to become a member of AIM, please contact us at membership@fip.org or scan the QR code on the upper right side of the slide and fill out the form. We will contact you with further membership details. I'd like to take this opportunity to invite you to the FIP World Congress, scheduled to take place in Copenhagen, Denmark, from 31st of August to 3rd of September. During the Congress, FIP AIM will host a special session titled Global Academic Leaders Forum. All AIM members are invited to join this annual meeting platform along with their leadership teams. It is a unique opportunity to connect, share insights, and collaborate on advancing pharmacy education globally. Also, AIM members will receive a special discount when registering for the Congress. Please visit our website to have more information about registration and program details. We look forward to seeing you and your teams in Copenhagen for what promises to be an enriching and engaging event. Let me briefly walk you through our program for today's session. We'll start with some opening remarks from our FIP AIM chair, Lilian Atsoparty, and FIP Ed chair, John Pieper, followed by immediate past AIM chair, Pierre Moreau. And then we will hear the presentations from our speakers. After the presentations, we will open the floor for a Q&A session, giving you the opportunity to ask questions directly to our speakers. To conclude, Lilian Atsoparty, our AIM chair, will announce the next area of concentration for AIM. We are excited for a dynamic exchange of ideas today. Let's get started. In today's webinar, our learning objectives are designed to deepen your understanding and engagement with key areas in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences education. Here's what we aim to achieve today. So today, we will explore the role of postgraduate education and research in advancing the field of pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences and discuss its impact on global health outcomes. You will learn about evidence-based initiatives that have successfully strengthened research and educational competencies at AIM schools. And we will examine effective strategies for increasing postgraduate enrollment and enhancing the quality and impact of research in pharmaceutical education. Lastly, we will explore practical approaches and for expanding career pathways and specializations in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences through enhanced educational practices. With that said, it's my pleasure to start the webinar, but one last housekeeping slide for me. So please note that this event is being recorded and live streamed on Facebook and YouTube, and you can then see the recording once again, which will be available on our website. Please use the Q&A box to ask your questions, and during the webinar, our speakers will be answering those questions. You are provided feedback to webinars@fip.org. And please become a member by using the QR code or the website link presented in the slide. With that said, we have one new translation feature on Zoom. So for that, please turn on your captions. And step 2, enable the translation toggle that you can see on screen as step 2. And as the last step, choose your preferred language under My Caption Language. Then you can follow along with live translated captions. Hope that's helpful. And it's my pleasure now to give the floor and introduce you, our AIM chair, for the opening remarks. She is the Dean of University of Malta, and she's the immediate past president of the AFP, that is European Association of Faculties of Pharmacy. Lillian, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ozge, and it's a pleasure to see a large number of participants who have at heart the interest of education. So I thank you for joining us, and I do look forward to this webinar together as we are celebrating the International Day of Education. So in the next slide, I'd like to just put in, as we embark on this webinar, some reflections related to this particular day of January 24th, which is the UNESCO Day dedicated for education. It has become a tradition for AIM to launch a report coming from the work that has been generated through the area of concentration that IIM members and volunteers are working on. This year, in 2025, as part of the commitment of a global commitment by UNESCO to invest in people and prioritize education, we do see the highlight that this year's theme relates to the power of equipping people and individuals to be able to navigate, understand, and influence technological advancement. In fact, this year's theme selected by UNESCO, which has been announced, is related to artificial intelligence and education, preserving human agency in a world of automation. Within FIP AIM, we had seen an opportunity as academic leaders to examine and share experiences of how we can provide a power of education to the pharmaceutical workforce through research and postgraduate education. So we do believe that, and I do feel that it is very appropriate that on International Day of Education today, we are taking up a very relevant area in pharmaceutical aspects and in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences that relate to how we can engage the proportion of our workforce to take up research aptitude and also follow further education. This area of concentration, which we have the AIM group was working on for the past year, led to the report that we're launching today and was led by my colleague Pierre Moreau, who will be taking over in the next within a short while to give a better overview of how the work was done and what has been produced. So with that, I do augur that you enjoy this webinar and invite you to contribute to other areas of concentration that will be coming up from IIM. And finally, happy International Day of Education to all. With that said, before we delve more into the aspect and the topic of today, it's an honor for me to be able to introduce Professor John Piper, the FIP Ed chair. Professor Piper is President Emeritus from the University of Health Sciences and Pharmacy in St. Louis in the United States. He has a number of affiliations and has provided contributions as an academic leader at the global level, and has had past positions within FIP related to academia through the academic pharmacy section and AIM itself. So, Professor Piper, the floor is yours, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Lillian. It's a pleasure to join this esteemed group, and thank you, colleagues, for joining this webinar. I think you will find that the work that's been done by colleagues around the world has inspiring, and it provides a lot of great insight. First, I wanted to just spend a few minutes, next slide, please, to talk about the vision and role and mission of FIP education, which is one of the 3 pillars within FIP joining practice and science, with education being considered foundational for practice and science. FIP Ed, or FIP Education, coordinates all the activities within FIP related to pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences education and workforce development. Our vision of FIP is to provide equitable access to transformational change in pharmaceutical education and training that advances practice and sciences. Our mission is to bring together educational institutions, leaders, and educators like those on this call, and other stakeholders to improve health through advancing pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences education and training. Next slide. The components of FIP Ed, or FIP Ed, are our institutional academic members, or the AIM members, who are joining us here today, the academic pharmacy section, which represents the faculty on instructors within academic pharmacy globally, the FIP UNESCO Unitwin relationship, United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization, and their Unitwin partnering initiative for FIP, Pharmacy Technicians Advisory Committee, which represents support personnel in pharmacy, as well as working with pharmacy education associations around the world. As Lillian mentioned, FIP Ed and AIM is the only global leadership body in pharmaceutical education that ensures and works to provide high-quality education and training as a foundation for workforce development and professional and scientific advancement to meet our current and future needs worldwide. With that background, next slide, please, I'm delighted to introduce a very distinguished colleague whose work has been amazing around the planet. He is just finishing up a term as Dean of the College of Pharmacy at Kuwait University. Prior to that, he was a former Dean of the Faculty of Pharmacy at the University of Montreal, and has just recently been named the current Director of the Association of Faculties of Pharmacy of Canada. Pierre is the immediate past chair of AIM, is a distinguished educator, and is the editor of this work that's going to be presented. So without further ado, here is Dr. Pierre Moreau.
Thank you, John, for the introduction. I'm very happy to be with all of you today to launch this handbook that has been the fruit of a very interesting and fruitful and fun collaboration between deans and academic leaders from around the world. And I'm very happy to, I'm very proud of the work that we've done. So if we can have the next slide. So we decided, of course, last year to work on postgraduate education and research because, a lot of deans from the community of AIM felt that it is an area that needs to be continuously worked on to make sure that we continue to provide top level research in this area where, as you know, the complexity continues to increase in terms of research and in terms of the drugs that we can have now available for our patients. So from bench to bedside, there's an increased complexity that requires very thorough research and also a commitment to continue to make sure that this research stays relevant, stimulating, and productive, so that we can enroll, sharp minds that will continue to push this area of research and knowledge further. So this was a kind of a common, let's say, challenge, and we wanted to address it. So the way we did that, and if I can have the next slide, please, is by working with people that would be interested. So we made a call last January to FIP AIM members to see if they were interested to join us and working on such a handbook to provide a set of activities and initiatives that would go towards improving postgraduate education in pharmaceutical science and pharmacy practice research. And we had, like you will see in the next slides, we had quite a long list of people. But basically, what we wanted to do was to not do a literature review, but basically provide in this handbook a collection of initiatives that were tried and tested by these different collaborators around the world, so that we could bring together a lot of ideas that you can then use within your own school, within your own environment, to try to find the best solution for you to, again, foster a better postgraduate education and research environment. So these two slides now that you're seeing are showing out the number of collaborators or contributors to this handbook. So it was amazing to work with all of them and get all these great ideas. So I thank them for their commitment and for the quality of the work that they provided to make sure that this handbook is useful and also reflects real life experience. So on the next slide, I will just quickly tell you how we work. So basically, we use a framework, which is the logic model, and we started by defining what are the main goals or outcomes, or the long-term things that we want to change. Then what are the objectives that can change these outcomes that can be measured? So these are the outputs or objectives. Then we worked on the different activities that can be developed and implemented to make sure that the objectives are met. And finally, we also talked about what are the resources needed to make sure that these activities can happen. So the way we worked was from moving from goal, outputs, activities, and resources, but the way you will read it is more from a resource side, the activities that can be done, the outputs that they will produce, and the goals that should be met at one point. So on the next slide, it's a little bit a different way of telling you how we work. So we brainstorm on outcomes and outputs. We had a couple of sessions on that to make sure that we could gather a lot of perspective from around the world on what would be our goal, the main goals, and what would be some of the objectives to reach each of these goals. And then we discussed examples of activities that each school were doing or they heard, and we reached out and we tried to collect all these initiatives for you to put in the handbook. So if I can have again, you will be able to use these depending on your current challenges, your current initiatives, and your current situation or environment, so that you can work to improve that. So basically, the impact is to promote research and postgraduate education in pharmacy and pharmaceutical sciences. And we found three main goals. The first one, and this is also the outline or the table of content of the handbook. The first one is improve pharmacy postgraduate enrollment. The second one is improve research quality and impact. And the last one was expand career pathways and specialization. So we feel that these are goals that will allow to have the expected impact in the long term. And for each of those, if I can have the next slide. So for each goal, then we devise, and it's too small, but you will find this in the handbook. But basically for each goal, we try to find the different objectives that would feed into reaching or aiming towards that goal. And on the next slide, you will see a kind of a snapshot of the first part of this graph. So for instance, to improve pharmacy postgraduate enrollment, we thought that one objective could be to diversify postgraduate studies, so the number of programs, to facilitate enrollment in the administrative aspect of it, to have a honor track in undergraduate studies, to integrate research or capstone project in undergrad studies, and to promote research and postgraduate studies awareness at the undergraduate level. So these are, and then for each of those, we had a series of activities or initiatives that schools have been doing and are reported in the handbook, and they also provide the resources needed to be able to do and perform these activities. So this is basically the structure of the handbook and the way we work to get it, and I think it will give you a perspective now on how we did things, and it will give you an idea also how to read the handbook and make sure that you can use it to your own benefit. So it's my pleasure now to introduce. So from the long list of contributors to the handbook, we have a couple today that will be presenting some aspects of the handbook. So some sections. We can't, provide a webinar with everything because we had like 50 pages of examples and initiatives. And our first speaker, the first contributor that is talking to you today is Renuka Selapans. Renuka is the head of the School of Pharmacy at Taylor's University in Malaysia, and she will be talking about improving research infrastructure as a means to improve postgraduate education and pharmaceutical science and pharmacy research. Renuka, your floor is yours.
Thank you, Pierre. Thanks for the kind introduction and giving me the honor to start this presentation on behalf of all the long list of contributors that we have shared earlier. As Pierre mentioned, I'll be speaking on a very specific section of this book on improving research infrastructure, particularly drawing based on my experience, our experience of designing of a new space at Taylor's University, Malaysia, in order to spearhead research. In the next slide, before I actually go to the content of this presentation, I would like to introduce the School of Pharmacy at Taylor's University so that you get the context at which this was done. So the School of Pharmacy at Taylor's University was established in 2010. So we are relatively young. In this 15 years, we have developed a pretty stable undergraduate program. By stable, I mean we have a good undergraduate program in terms of quantity and quality. So for the next step, we really want to boost our postgraduate enrollment and our research output. But we would like to do this with a focus on global trends and industry relevant advancement. In the next slide. So how did we do this? The first thing first, the leadership of the school, we sat down and we tried to identify research trends. Among others, we found that there is an emerging opportunity in aesthetic medicine. I'm not sure about your part of the world, but definitely in Asia and specifically in Malaysia, we see that there's a rising interest in personal care, cosmetic, and perfumery among youth. However, at the same time, we see that there's a concern about the safety and long-term effect on the use of this product. We see this as a huge opportunity for pharmacies, for School of Pharmacy to fit in this gap to balance safety of this product with innovation through evidence-based research. So next, we decided to conduct a internal evaluation to identify the kind of resources that we need and the infrastructure gaps that we need to fill the gap that we identified, the trend that we see. So the key finding for our internal need assessment is we find that there is a need for a purpose-built facility equipped with relevant and advanced equipment that will foster industry collaboration. And we see that this purpose-built facility will enhance our teaching, research, and partnership. Next slide, please. At the same time, of course, it's a huge project. We did undertake a huge project. We had no space, we had no facility, we even had no expertise. So I've listed just two main things that I think are worth mentioning here. The resources that we need to actually execute this project. First is budget allocation. The idea was the school, but definitely we need the budget from the university administrator. Hence, I had to pitch this cosmetic laboratory idea to the university administrator to get the budget allocated for this project. I emphasized the potential for innovation and commercialization of this space and the ability to boost our PG research and secure further fundings. At the same time, we also managed to convince the administrator to put in some budget for strategic hiring. So we did strategic hiring at the same time of building the space. We hired expertise in personal care and perfumery so that when the person come in, we actually can work together with the new hires to identify the design of the space, the kind of equipment that we need to equip in the lab, and also we actually also engage external experts to make sure that the design of the lab is current, practical, and also industry relevant. Next slide, please. So with that, we came up with our cosmetics and perfumery laboratory that we established at Taylor's University. It was a long process. I think it took us almost 9 months or even a year from planning up to the execution to the picture that you see here. Now we have a lab, we have a cosmetic and perfumery laboratory that is dedicated for teaching, research, and industry. So this lab is highly used for our research. But at the same time, when we develop the lab, we see with the interest that we see among our youth, we also offer a few elective modules or courses for our undergraduates. So it's used for teaching, research, and industry kind of workshops. It is equipped with relevant instruments for personal care and perfumery. And we even conducted a media launch to boost this lab's visibility and credibility to show the kind of facility that we have, the kind of expertise that we have, and the kind of work that we can do. So with all this in place, I would like to proudly share the kind of outcome in the next slide. So within a year of this lab being in place, we have our electives that we offer to our undergraduate program oversubscribed. We have to cap the student numbers. There's so much of interest to take this module. We have produced so far 6 final year research projects, out of which one is there's a prototype developed and ready for further steps. One of our strategic hire for this lab with expertise in personal care, she has secured a national research grant and 2 postgraduate students working under the grant. And we have thus far conducted about 3 industry workshops on personal care and perfumery workshop in this space. So with all this, it just gives us a reassurance that we are in the right place with a goal, with an objective, with a plan, with activities and all these resources, and we see that there is an impact. Now, will we stop here? No. Next slide, please. We see that this is as a continuous process of setting a goal, setting an objective, identifying the resources, planning the activities, implementation, and monitoring. And so we look forward to expanding research into aesthetic medicine and sustainable cosmetic. We want to strengthen global partnership and commercialization of prototypes, and we want to continuously upgrade our facilities to make sure that it remain industry relevant. With that, we're looking forward to a better 2025. Thank you for listening, and back to you, Pierre.
Thank you, Renuka. This was an amazing example of initiatives that can be done that are creative, that are focused on needs. It's really a beautiful example. So thank you for sharing that with us. And this is the type of example you will find described in the handbook. And now let's move to the next contributor, Indre Tresciocchini. I'm sorry if I you're good. I did a good job. Yeah. So from Vilnius University in Lithuania, and Indre has been contributing to several sections of the handbook, and we're very happy that she's with us today to share some of that. And without further ado, Indre, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pierre, and thank you everyone joining us for this webinar today. I'm associate professor at Vilnius University and was past pharmacy program coordinator for a few years now. And I also have to say that our pharmacy program is quite new. We developed and started it in 2015. So this was also a possibility for us to introduce some initiatives or use already existing initiatives for research promotion in the university. So if we can move to the next slide, I will present three initiatives or three different activities that need different resources but could be implemented in the pharmacy program. So first example that we also presented in the handbook is the initiative that enhances and promotes research in the undergraduate level, also in helping students to see what they can do afterwards. So in our undergraduate curriculum, we have a course where students have a possibility, or they have to develop a protocol on a research topic of their interests. And this course this task has a twofold process. So within 4 weeks, they are introduced into the method study designs, and they have to develop aims, objectives, and choose the study design and correct or right methods to answer their question. And then they have 8 weeks to develop and deliver project. And then the project is scored and comments are provided and given to the student by the mentors. And in the end, few of those projects are developed further into the master thesis, or sometimes even further for the postgraduate research project. If we can move to the next slide, I will present another initiative that we have, and this initiative is fostering research collaborations and is aimed more for postgraduate inclusion into the academia. So we have this summer school that is for researchers in drug utilization field. We have summer school, and last year we had it, previous years due to COVID, we had it online, but last year we had it completely on campus, and it was quite good initiative, an example that involves our past students and researchers and servants working in the health care or pharmacy field can join and do joint research projects. And as drug utilization research is very practical, all the results could be implemented, or sometimes even the aims comes from the need of pharmaceutical care or improvement in how we use medicines. This school is a good spot to foster those collaborations. And if we go to the next slide, this is an example that we have at Vilnius University. So we have an initiative that is not only for the pharmacy education, and it's not only intended for the Faculty of Medicine, but it's initiative from big university. And this is the journal that we have. So in this Spectrum journal, researchers are invited to adapt their research outcomes in the way, in the language that it could be understood by non-scientists. So we have this journal twice a year, and usually we have at least one research project presented from pharmacy school. And afterwards, usually those articles are also reported in media campaigns on TV and radio. And this is a good example and a good tool that fosters communication of research outcomes to the society. So this requires a bit more effort and higher resources to be involved into the school. But the other one that we use and foster and encourage our researchers and lecturers to do is to use publicly available media channels to foster and enhance visibility of research that we do. So hashtags, acknowledgement of the research teams and contributors, and also use of institutional logo are encouraged. And there you see two of my own media campaign messages, one on university's Facebook profile, another one on LinkedIn on my previous research. So those are three strategies. If you would like to see, there are more presented in the handbook, but I thought those three would be most interesting to hear about today. So thank you for this opportunity, and I hope this was useful.
Thank you, Andre, for giving us a very nice overview of things that you are doing in your part of the world to foster, postgraduate education with your, quite new school, but definitely as, thinking about the future and making sure that things are sustainable. So congratulations on that. We will now move to the next speaker, which is Professor Sherif Khalifa, who is Vice Chancellor, Academic Affairs and Dean of the College of Pharmacy, Dubai Medical University. He's been involved with the FIP AIM Advisory Board for the last year and a half or something, and he contributed to the handbook. And he will be presenting some of what he contributed to the handbook this morning. So, Sherif.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you for the introduction. Well, I'll be talking about, pathway to academic positions, and also going to talk about the summer research internships, two of the activities that I wrote about in the handbook. And basically, I will be reflecting on some of the projects that were done in the United Arab Emirates. I've been, involved in Dubai Medical University recently, and before that, I was the dean at Gulf Medical University as well. So most of what I'm going to be talking about applies to both schools, but it also applies generally to the region in terms of my previous work in Qatar University, in some Egyptian universities, etc. So I'm hoping that some of what I'll say will be relevant to what you see in other parts of the world as well. So next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So the UAE story, or creating the pathway. As we know, in any college of pharmacy, you have kind of two paths. You have the pharmaceutical sciences, and the pharmacy practice sides of the college. And in the MENA region, or many places, you find lots of focus on pharmaceutical sciences and the traditional pathway of master's and PhD. Now, in some other parts of the world, you don't have to do the master's. You can go directly to the PhD. Most of the institutions in the region would like you to do both. And it's taking us some time in the region to realize that pharmacy practice could be different. And the way to do postgraduate studies might not be the traditional master's and PhD. I've had, several struggles in different countries in trying to convince the administration that, things, apples and oranges are not the same and they should be treated in a different way. So anyway, we'll be talking about that in the next few slides. Next, please. Yeah, and maybe in the previous slide I had something about continuous learning, and I think this is if we want to inject research in the minds of our students, it's through what we always tell them, never stop learning or continuous learning, and lots of learning comes through research and innovation. Now, what we've done, and I think it's done now in several schools of pharmacy around the world, is mandatory undergraduate research. So in both institutions I worked with in UAE, we made it part of the study plan to have, a scholarly pathway of courses that ends in sometimes one semester or a full year of a research project. So students would be 3 or 4 students in a group working with a research supervisor on this project. It would be mandatory for them to present in a scientific meeting, which is pretty easy in Dubai because we have so many of those around the year. So it gives them the opportunity to do poster and podium presentations, which is an excellent opportunity for them. And in many cases, since we have a full year, there's an opportunity for them to graduate with a peer-reviewed publication to their name. So that's very motivational and very exciting for the students. Now I put here, faculty role model in red, because students, undergraduate students are looking for guidance. They're looking for role models. I want to be like him. I want to do like her. I want to, this and that. So, and the undergraduate research projects are a very good motivational experience for these students to think of pursuing postgraduate studies, either in pharmaceutical sciences or pharmacy practice. There's so many of those intelligent students who, if we give them the right opportunity and guidance, they will become excellent scientists, researchers, and they will contribute to education and to the profession much more better than us, actually. So role model becomes extremely important. Again, in this part of the world, when you look at any college of pharmacy, well, I know it's changing now, but in some places you find the number of faculty in pharmaceutical sciences are much more than those in pharmacy practice, right? And this makes, the top students who are interested in research are going to pharmaceutical sciences only. And I think we should have the diversity and we should have the opportunity to go in both directions. Next, please. Okay, so I plugged in here our summer research internship program. Now, this is I think it's an excellent program because it provides opportunities to students to be exchange students, to do it's usually 6 weeks in the summer where they go to a research lab in a reputable university and get exposed to a research group in another country with good reputation. You see here, for example, you see Nurhan on the far left, Fatiha in the middle with her hand on the mask, and you see down to the right, this is Dalia. All 3 went to Virginia Commonwealth University, College of Pharmacy there in different labs, pharmacogenomics, drug delivery, etc. And in the down left is one of the VCU students who came to our university. It was Gulf Medical University. The opportunities, to turn on basically the research gene was incredible. And as we followed up, next slide will show you what happened with some of these students. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are 3 of our students who, well, unfortunately, after they finished the summer research internship, COVID came. So it was basically an opportunity for them to say, okay, maybe we'll do PhDs or postgraduate studies abroad, etc. And the opportunity wasn't right because of the time. And luckily, we had established a master's program in drug discovery and development, and all 3 of these students joined that program. And although we were in a private university, it was difficult initially to say, okay, this program is not a money-making program. We're actually going to spend money on it, to generate research, etc., and recruit students. But the idea that having such intelligent students in this program will help us faculty and retain high quality faculty because they have such good students and they will publish some good work was the make or break. So Dalia now is in Virginia Commonwealth University doing her PhD in pharmacogenomics. Rehab in Canada, cellular molecular medicine, and Hisham recently joined a research group in Manchester University in the UK. We're very proud of them because they came from different parts of the world to the UAE, and now we're sending them to the world to do postgraduate studies, inshallah. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, the previous was more about the pharmaceutical sciences camp. And I think we've done well with the Masters of Drug Discovery in the summer internships and giving opportunities, which is really our job. Now, pharmacy practice pathway is the more challenging one because, as I mentioned in my previous slides, is that the traditional way is do masters and PhD to reach the pathway to an academic position. It remained like that for a while, and it took us time in different countries in the region to convince the administrators that you don't have to get a PhD to become an assistant professor. Well, and at the same time, we don't want good clinicians and clinical pharmacists who are incapable of doing research. The idea was to produce the clinician scientist in red. Now, we thought, okay, let's introduce a fellowship program in clinical pharmacy research. And the fellowship program, because we don't have a system in the UAE that provides the fellowship program we decided to team up with Washington State University, where we had a joint fellowship program with them. We followed the lines of the College of Pharmacy to be recognized them as well, and other meetings. Now, fellows or graduates who are capable of doing independent research. And this is the keyword, independent research, not help in research, not do data collection and simple stuff, but actually developing their capability of independent research. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, yes, no, the previous one. Maybe I spoke a little fast. Can I have the previous slide, please? Yes, okay. Now, those are the slide that has the two fellows, the two pictures. Well, the slide that has the two pictures, yes, thank you. Those are the two fellows. This is Shabazz Muhyiddin, and this is he's presenting at ASHP, And this is Ahmed Lawaini while he was presenting at the Clinical Pharmacy Congress in the UK. We're very proud of them. They finished their fellowship, and because they finished their fellowship, now they are eligible to be to take on the assistant professor title. So we are very glad that we were able to provide them the pathway to earn the academic title and move on with their career as clinician scientists, and to be able to contribute more to the teaching and to the patient care at a research level. Next slide, please. Now, pharmacy practice pathway had, as you can see, there's some challenges because of the requirements of a professorial appointment. I just talked about master's and PhD, which really doesn't, fit well in when you talk about clinical pharmacy, although there are some schools who are offer PhD in clinical pharmacy. Personally, I don't think this is the ideal way. I think we're talking about a professional doctorate program. We're looking for faculty who have a dual appointment, half of their time providing patient care in the hospital setting and the other half in the classroom. Those who are teaching pharmacotherapy, I think, should be practicing and should have their own patients rather than do research, away from the work environment and teach the students. So in UAE, initially, they were saying, the administration, the ministry, okay, PharmD, PGY1 and PGY2 to become assistant professor, which was not reasonable because there's no PGY2 in the country, only the first general residency. So that didn't work for us. And at the same time, I didn't think it was right because it doesn't really address the research component as it should. So we proposed to the Ministry of Education that, licensed clinical pharmacist after a PhD with a general residency and a fellowship. So we proposed the fellowship because this is a 2-year postgraduate fellowship, research fellowship, and focused on producing fellows with capable of doing independent research, and that would make them really on par with any PhD graduates. And it was acceptable. We are very happy about that. Next slide, please. This is my last slide, and it's about creating the balance. Again, looking back at, as a dean of a college of pharmacy, I'm looking at, how our graduates look like, hoping that the graduates would have very much focus on their clinical roles, not that would go much beyond dispensing, of course. This is why I'm an advocate, and some of my colleagues share the same thing, of abandoning the Bachelor of Pharmacy program, just like many institutions have done around the world, even in Saudi Arabia and in other places. So basically looking at, PharmD as the entry to practice degree, at the same time producing opportunities and tracks for the students in the undergraduate level to do research and innovation, explore their capabilities and their interest in both camps, the pharmacy practice and pharmaceutical sciences, creating these summer research opportunities and allowing the students to go in different directions so that hopefully we can graduate the practitioners, at the same time the clinician scientists who will do research to improve practice, and the pharmaceutical scientists who will also do much research in drug discovery and development. Thank you very much, and sorry for crossing the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherif, for starting from the more traditional ways of being academician and then to the newer ways and being innovative in the region as well, to do that, to make sure that we can have a proper education and research to advance both pharmacy practice and pharmaceutical sciences. So thank you for sharing that balance. I really like this idea of having both and looking at also making sure that we do connect with our graduates and that we offer them all the possibilities for postgraduate education. So that was a great way of doing that, and I share your enthusiasm and your vision as well. So we will move now to the next speaker. Is Dr. Wafa Mohammed Al-Magdahi, professor in drug discovery, Faculty of Pharmacy at Sana'a University in Yemen. And she will be talking to you about needs-based research. So Wafa, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pierre, for introductions, and hello, everyone. Today we want to talk about need-based research. My name is Wafa Al-Madhaji, just for pronunciations. Just want to talk about from Yemen, and you know that Yemen is under conflicts for more than 10 years. So how we could make a research that is very relevant and very helpful to the situation that we are working in. Next slide, please. When we want to do any research that is related to the need-based research, there is a different or pathway that we need to go through, which is to have a partnership activities, seminar series, and responding to an outbreak, access to patients in remotely area. Today, I just want to talk about respond to an outbreak, the part that I participate in the handbook. Next slide. Responding to the outbreak, it was like one of the needs for our country in Yemen, mainly the outbreak that is related to cholera. I will be focused in cholera because, you know, COVID has been all over the world, but cholera is more specific to Yemen. So this is why we are talking that responding to the outbreak that is related to cholera, because we are more targeting about the enhancing the research quality and the impact. By priorities, the need-based research in response to the outbreak. We take cholera because there is an outbreak inside Yemen. We're starting by identifying the research need that is really relevant to the outbreak. And then second step, we do cooperation between different stakeholders, which is civil society, organization, universities, and public health, because the situation in Yemen that is very complicated and the financial is very limited and the universities has not a lot of money that could be conducted. So the partnership is very important so that everyone is covering from his end. So this effective collaboration among this stakeholder has been the aim to leverage the academic expertise, financial support from organization, and the public officials, because at the end we need a decision to be making from the policy. Next slide. The research was focusing on understanding the disease transmission pattern, evaluating of effectiveness of the control measures, and also exploring the new treatment that has been done, and also introducing the vaccine, especially that the vaccine has built a lot of numerous inside the countries. So we have to make a different step that could be addressing the real needs, and we could make the real needs of this research. Then the researcher has been provided with the necessary tool and support quickly to generate and disseminate this finding. This finding has been disseminated to the public health response and policy decisions, because we need a response that is being collaborated to try to reduce the outbreak in the country. After that, we make a regular progress review to ensure that the research has been met the required needs, or we need a further assessment or a further research that could be cover the gap that is related. After that, the finding that has been collected, it has to be disseminated in the different platforms and different resources. So we make it like academic publications that has been by use of universities, and we do it also as a policy briefing, so that the decision making has been taken from the publics and taken from governments, and also to make it disseminated to the public by using the easy language so that people could understand the real problems of the cholera, what is the cause of the outbreak, and what is the importance of the vaccines that is related. So in this state, as a country that has a conflict and a crisis, we could say that the need-based research is one of the very important solutions, and here where the research is very important to address a need of a country. So this is what we call it, enhance the relevance and the impact of research. So this become to be more effective in public health intervention and also improve the outcome for effective communities. Next slide. Next. Yes. This is the last slide I want to talk about. You see here there is a different resources has been used in the research, which is normally has been taken. But why I want to be focusing here, because in the human resources we are using and depending in the university in that. In financial resources, the university could not be covered because the situation, economic situation of Yemen, and there is no salaries and no funds for research and all this risk. So we take this financial support from the organization who's operating in Yemen. The technical expertise has been diverse, and then we do partnerships also with the public authorities so that they could take the real decisions making. And finally, the publication, because we need also this research to be impact and more relevant to the needs. So this publication is very important. Thank you for all of you and to the chance to be with you today.
Thank you, Wafa, for sharing your part of the handbook, and for sharing also your reaction to a difficult, of course, situation in your country, and to be making sure that you're bringing science and best practice to make sure that you can address these health issues in your community. So this is I think a very good lesson, that we should also be in touch with the real world and making sure that we are addressing these needs as they arise in different countries. Of course, different needs, but you did a great job to do that. And I think this is something that should be commended. So congratulations on doing that and taking it seriously and to the heart. So our next speaker is Dr. Nsovo Mayimele, who is from the Tshwane University of Technology in South Africa. She's advancing healthcare and women's health, and she will talk to us about diversifying postgraduate studies in pharmacy as a means, again, to improve the pharmacy postgraduate education and pharmacy research as well. So we saw a little bit of that with the cosmetic at the beginning with Renuka, but now we will have another perspective from South Africa on this diversification of what we can do to postgraduate education to make sure that we continue to be relevant and important. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Pierre. So I'll be presenting about what is happening around diversifying, that is within the South African perspective, especially from the Tshwane University of Technology where I'm located. Next slide, please. So when we look at postgraduate pharmacy studies, in general, we had a presentation about the format that you would follow for clinical studies. But then in this case is mainly around the actual research and how to make postgraduate studies in the form of a master's degree, either through a master's by research or a master's by coursework and research. So over here on the slide, I've got this little diagram that just shows the formats which are available typically to our students, mainly in South Africa. So when a student chooses, it's it depends on what they would like to do, whether they want to become a professional pharmacy researcher or a specialist within the discipline that they would select within pharmacy. So this diversity is mainly so that the person would be able to choose what they prefer. And it is there to drive research excellence amongst our students. Next slide, please. So now we'll just take a focus on the one that is by research only. The key features that you find in the master's program that is research only is that there's no cost work. So all the credits within this particular degree or the program is directed towards research. Sometimes it can be 180 credits, which is the standard for a master's degree in South Africa, or it can be 360 credits, depending on the size of the thesis that the student would be able to produce. So we have got orientation for most of our master's programs where the student will now be taught about research methodology and how to write academically, especially when they're supposed to write their research methodology. So the thing about this type of program is that it requires regular supervisor meetings and monitoring, because in some cases you find that students that are enrolled in it get lost for the fact that there are no classes, so there are no compulsory meetings that would be set up. Then the student is isolated, does not really know what to do. So hence, it really requires efforts from the supervisor and the student to make it work. The main outcome of this is a dissertation that would be published, but then in some cases it would be publications. So it depends on the university, where they would say that they require 3 publications or so. At my current university, at the Tshwane University of Technology, usually 2 to 3 for a master's by research. Next slide, please. So for the Tshwane University of Technology, this is our case study, which is located in the capital city of South Africa. Over here, all our master's programs within the Department of Pharmaceutical Sciences is actually in the form of research only. So this whole program, as explained, that is directed towards research, and everything that the student does over the 2 years that they're registered with us is directed towards research. So they're taught how to use their reference management system, and then they do, it can either be at a hospital where they do research in a hospital that is a clinical training site, or it can actually be in a lab, or they can do a desktop review where required. And this is usually sufficient depending on the amount of data that they would collect. Next slide, please. So in terms of the master's by coursework and research, this is usually referred to as a balanced approach because it provides the student with the theoretical knowledge and also research experience that is combined. Usually the typical structure that is followed is that either a 12-month period or an 18-month period where the student would be focused on the theory. So that is discipline oriented. So it would be a discipline of clinical pharmacy, discipline of public health, discipline of pharmacokinetics, or whatever discipline they would choose. And then they would conduct research that is based on their discipline of theory. That is, then they write up a mini dissertation, or they would write out publications as required by the university. The course content would be evaluated in the form of assignments, assessments, and exams. And usually the student is supposed to be competent in all of the theory before they can proceed to the research component. Next slide, please. So the resources that are needed for both formats is that the students do require library resources that is in the form of online and also physical libraries. They would require a lot of research workshops and training that would train them to become independent researchers, because that is the whole idea. That is how the master's degree has been designed to be, that they become independent researchers. The requirements that we need for these is that we need experienced academic supervisors. We need software that is used in research, that is the form of SPSS and Atlas TI, depending on what data you're collecting and the availability. We need an ethics committee that should be available and supported by institutional committees. And also we'll need workshops on consistent workshops that are available to the students, and also in the form of recordings. So over here, I just provided a little diagram of the steps that we follow when the students are enrolled, depending on which one they're enrolled into. So the student and the supervisor will select the format, and then they proceed with the requirements all the way until the student has qualified to graduate. Next slide, please. So you would ask yourself, why do we need to diversify? Is it really necessary, and is it really worth the effort? Well, I would say that yes, we need to have this diversity because different students are interested in different ideas of what they want to become. Previous slide. Next slide. Okay, so
is this the slide that you want to present? Sorry, there is some internet connection. Sometimes you see it's a bit late than I do. Is this the correct slide?
No, diversity in the diversity slide.
Is this the one?
Slide. Next slide.
Can you tell me which number is that?
59. Slide 59.
59?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, colleagues. Please go ahead, Nsova.
Okay, apologies for that. So you would ask yourself, why is it necessary for us to offer this flexibility? Pharmacists are basically people that think differently. I mean, we cannot paint them all with one brush. Some would like to become specialists within their disciplines, while others would actually like to focus solely on research. So to make this option available to our students is very good, for the fact that those that are interested in research will choose the research route, and those that are interested in becoming specialists within their discipline will do the one that combines with coursework. So having this diversity offers the opportunity to address the workforce needs that we have in the country and also in the region, whatever we need to achieve. And it also allows for interdisciplinary collaboration, be it within the settings, the practice settings, or within the lab settings, because that is where you practice with various people from different professions. And we have the availability of resource support for critical success. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, having this diversity of formats will allow us as a profession to drive innovation and also meet the needs of our students while meeting the needs of the people that we serve, that is the communities. And we also are able to advance research excellence, because yes, we've got the research scientist specialists and also those that do their coursework. And our flexibility attracts a broader range of students, and it also allows us to address the global workforce demand, and it allows universities to become leaders within the pharmaceutical education field and also within research. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. Back to you, Pierre.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nsovo, for a very interesting model and trying to cater to so many different options for the students. And sometimes we feel that we have a mold and they should fit into it. But I think by changing how we think about postgraduate education and how we can have different molds for different people is probably a good way to go. So thank you so much for this contribution. I think this is the last speaker. So now I will be back to Lilian to talk about, I guess, the next things into our activities. So Lilian, back to you.
Thank you, Pierre. I think we had a very fruitful and full webinar with ideas, and there have been a couple of questions in the Q&A box which are being answered in the box as well. So I also invite our participants to look through the Q&A box. As to summarize the insights from what has been presented today, first of all, what I would like to as well emphasize is that I'd like to thank the speakers on the session today, but also emphasize that the report that is available for AIM members actually carries a large number of examples coming from around 25 people who are involved in this working group. And however, as I wrap up on these examples, I did hear a number of times, and I can also see on the write-up, the aspect of needs, the aspect of diversity, and the aspect of preparing our graduates to embrace research. So in the next slide, I would like to conclude on an aspect that I've also seen in the Q&A box coming in, that in line with the report is examples of what others have done, and which we can all use to lead us into reflecting on what are the needs as our pharmaceutical workforce, our pharmaceutical settings in our country, in our region is changing. Thinking at how can we diversify what we are offering for postgraduate education to meet those needs, and how we can start putting in the bud for an aptitude towards research in our pharmacy students. And as a final reflection, I would also like to share how, yes, we have seen a number of examples highlighting these aspects of needs, diversity, as well as examples of having the practice aspect also put in ways of providing career pathways to practitioners. And one of the areas that I thought of highlighting is also an example coming from my university, but which is one example out of many global examples of how we can also use different sites for the research itself. Highlighting here the example of having community pharmacy as the research site, moving away from having research associated only with the pharmaceutical science aspect, but also with the community pharmacy practice, even at a PhD level. Considering the number of graduates working in practice, considering that we need these graduates are now also looking for academic career pathways that give them the opportunity to pursue academic degrees. And also we need this research to feed back innovation into the community practice sites and the practice sites themselves. And the report also transmits examples of how these are done in different parts of the world, including our experience. So I don't know, Ozge, whether we have time to move on to the Q&A section or whether the Q&A have been answered on the digital box.
Let me check very quickly once again.
If I may, while you're checking, I know a lot of people asked and I answered, how can we get the handbook? And the short answer is that you have to be a FIP AIM member to receive the full handbook. There will be a summary of the handbook available soon. but it does not contain all the initiatives and activities and all the details. And we do this because it's a benefit of being members. So this handbook is produced by FIP AIM members for other FIP AIM members. We're nearly 200 schools now a member of FIP AIM, and the goal is to make sure that we provide them with resources. So the first handbook that was published 3 years ago was about student enrollment. Again, a lot of initiatives about how to improve student enrollment. Last year's handbook was on capacity building, and this year's book, as you know, is about postgraduate education and research. So becoming a FIP AIM member is one way to access all this wealth of information, and also being able to collaborate and discuss with other colleagues on the next handbooks. And I think Liliane will be announcing the next theme for next year's handbook. So stay tuned. And again, this is the way you can be part of the community.
Thank you very much, Pierre. We have 2 pending questions in the Q&A box, but I'm not sure which speaker that our guests would like them to respond. So if they can kindly ask which speaker to respond to those questions, because I'm not sure. It would be very helpful.
Yeah, I have some questions. First for Renuka. When you talked about your initiatives, you talked about doing, a needs assessment to be able to develop this postgraduate education for cosmetics, and so did you consult the local stakeholders? How was this consultation phase done to be able to come up with the great program that you developed?
Thanks, Pierre, for the question. Yeah, you're right. Actually, we did consult internal and external stakeholder. So because we want to have a very strong justification to the administrator when we bring up our case for the resource and budgeting. So externally, we actually approach a couple of pharmaceutical industry players and checked with them about the needs in terms of training and all that. We found that there are many personal care products being developed without expertise, and the expertise are usually learning on the job. So they say that there is a need to train, there is a need for research in this area. And so those are some of the examples that we see. And we also identified that they want to collaborate with academic centers because they see that we have expertise, we have scientific background that will further enhance their products and improve the safety of their product. And regulatory bodies, we even spoke to regulatory bodies who very much welcome the idea of academic centers starting up and expertise or building capacity in the area of personal care and perfumery, so that we come up with a better products, safe products for customers here.
Excellent, thank you. If I may have another question for Wafa. Wafa, you shared one example of how research can quickly shift and adapt to local needs. Can you give us an idea of the time frame? Because you talked about cholera and how it's affecting your community. How much time does it take for all this to take shape and make sure that science can contribute to, I would say, acute problems in society?
The time it has been more than one progress. At the first time, it has been quickly to be within 6 months, so that we have to initiate the exact situation so that a rapid response could be done. After that, we do extend to address the gaps that also needs. So we could say that more than one phase has been done in the research to be completely, so that the policy decisions are then should be involved at the end to make a decision that is related, and also to improve the taking the vaccine and all these things. So there is more than one steps, and each steps has been done to address one gap that will help. So between 6 months, 1 year, but not a more, because we need a fast action.
Yeah, definitely. Great. That's amazing how the community can mobilize itself and work on these problems. Thank you.
Pierre, I believe we have a question for further details for Insovo to highlight details regarding the Masters by Research with regards to the planning of credits and time duration.
Okay, thank you, Lillian. So in terms of the planning and time duration is to ensure that whatever research that we conduct actually adheres with the requirements of the qualifications authority of the country. So the credits should be the type of research that is conducted should translate into what is required by the qualifications authority and also our higher education authority. So what I can give you an example with is that usually our students that take on the Masters by Research program, they do extensive research. It's just that I didn't bring in the individual case studies. But for example, we had one of our recent graduates. She was researching falsified medicines. So she researched for falsified medicines, the prevalence of falsified medicines here in South Africa and also in Southern Africa, that is neighboring countries, where she would try and locate where the falsified medicines can be found. And such projects usually have got very huge impact because after she was done with the research, the outcomes of her research were actually adopted by the African Union, where they used her outcomes to be able to locate where falsified medicines are. Another example is we've got a student that developed a nutraceutical that is now being used by miners that are working underground. Instead of using cornmeal, they use that nutraceutical, which is sorghum based. So usually the students that take this route have got, I would say that they don't do, when you look at the Master of Pharmacy degree by coursework, it's just to test if the student is able to do research. So with the ones that we have for the full research degree, the outcomes is not only to test if they can do research, but then it's the impact. We measure the impact of the research that they do. So then we are able to defend with our qualifications authority why the student deserves a master's degree and they've not done any coursework. I hope that answers the question.
All right. I think, should we conclude today's webinar? Thank you again for everybody for being there, for those that also contributed to the handbook. And I think, Lillian, you have an announcement to make.
Yes,
I think we have 2 minutes left.
Yes, if we can have the last slides, please. So with that done, I'd like to come back to the work that we will be working on. So I invite AIM members and I invite you to join and contact us so that you get more information on how to join AIM members and become part of this very active community. Over the past 3 years, we have dedicated our work in 2023. We had an enrollment focus. Last year, we had the focus on how we could expand on academic capacity in schools of pharmacy. And this year we were looking at this topic of research and postgraduate education, and the 2025 area of concentration, which the working group will be working on, is regarding relevant education for practice and science. How do we build in curricula? How do we navigate around the needs of ensuring that our graduates can be relevant to the needs of the current needs for pharmacy practice and pharmaceutical sciences? And that is here. Therefore, I invite you to look out for emails that you will be receiving to invite you to join our working group for 2025. With that said, I'd like to again remind you that we will be coming back as AIM with the other remote sessions, but I'd like to also invite you to start making up your plans for meeting us in person in Copenhagen, the FIP World Congress between 31st August and 3rd September. It will be an opportunity to network, disseminate your research, and for all of us to come together. And also a heads up that on the 31st of August, which is the Sunday, we will have the session that is dedicated to the AIM session. So we will also have a very specific session related to academia and entrepreneurship and research. The pillars of the Congress relate to making it sustainable, making the system work, making it personal from all the aspects of the diverse spectrum of pharmacy and pharmacy education and pharmaceutical sciences. So we do look forward to having you submit your abstracts, to share the research, and to the platform where we can network, meet, have more ideas together. It's been a pleasure for me and an honor for me to be with you today on this webinar. It's also a privilege to be part of the community where we can talk, share, and work together. Here, I'd like to again, please allow me to thank particularly Pierre for leading this working group and giving us a very good deliverable that we can all use. And also Ozge, who was the support structure from FIP to be able for us to be here with you launching and discussing the ideas that my colleagues have very, very well shared with you during this webinar. The email membership@fip.org is a reminder that you can contact us, inquire how we can expand our community, and I really look forward to meet you all. And thank you again. Thanks for all the participants for joining us today.